All right, let's continue on with the nervous system, highlighting from the book so we can get a clear idea and fill in the blanks on things maybe we didn't mention or things that are not on the slide. So the nervous system control and coordinates the function of other systems of the body so they can work harmoniously together. So the brain is the chief, it's the master of our body, okay? It's the head of the household. So the functions of the nervous system, besides controlling visible and invisible activities, it also controls our thoughts and our conduct and how we behave. It also governs internal and external environment, balancing the inner and the outer, and gives us power to all the five senses and of memory. Now, neurons are nerves. So neuron is the structural unit of a nervous system, so the smallest unit. And a neuron is contains of a cell body, which is, this is the cell body, okay? And the projectiles or projections that stem out of it, which we call nerve fibers. So these are considered nerve fibers, okay? Things that extend out from the body of the nerve cell. Now, there is these multi-branches called dendrites, which is these. They're like hair sticking out projections like that, okay? And they have the ability to connect to other neurons and also to receive information from them. And they conduct also impulses. So it conduct impulses away from the body. So it can receive signals from here and it can send signals out. Now the axons, which is that long axon, that long thing you see here, the long tail, is of most nerves are covered by a myelin sheath. Okay, so myelin is also one of the six uh, um, nerve cells types that we're going to talk about right now. And it's made out of fatty Schwann cells. Just that's the name of it. So it's made out of fatty material. That's why we need to eat good fat. You know, we need to eat good fats for our brain and for our hormone function. So low fat diets are no good. You need high fat, good fat diets and balanced diet. And what do these myelins do? They insulate the nerve and aid in the conduction of the nerve impulse. They aid in it, okay? Nerve cell also store energy and nutrients that are used by the cell to produce and convey nerve impulses throughout the body. When we were in the muscular system, I told you that we're going to go and dive into how the signal goes from the nerve to the muscle to create a contraction. Okay, we'll talk into that in a moment, but keep that not in mind, okay? That there is nutrients that the cell body needs, okay, so it can conduct its business throughout the body. Now, neurons have two abilities. One is to react to certain stimuli. So when a stimuli comes, it has this ability of irritability, okay? So that is an important word to know. And to transmit an impulse generated by the stimuli over a distance to another neuron. So maybe a neuron to another neuron. So it has the ability of conductibility. So connecting from a neuron to a neuron, communicating through them, it's by conduction or conductibility. And receiving stimulus, okay, to be transmitted is irritability. So they'll ask you what are the two characteristics or abilities that a nerve cell can do. It's going to be these two, irritability and conductibility. So impulses are passed through one neuron to the other at the junction called a synapse. So a synapse, let me see if I have a picture of the synapse here. If not, I have another perfect video to show you about the synapse, me and my videos. I like visual stuff. So the idea, the synapse is where the axon terminal, after the impulse comes through to transmit it to another neuron or gland, or whatever, these synapse or terminals connect to another, let's say neuron to a neuron, so neuron to a neuron. So that space between my knuckles is called a synapse gap. Okay, so what happens if an impulse goes through the axon saying to the next nerve cell to transmit a certain hormone or neurotransmitter, it's going to be released from the dendrites into that space to be transferred to the other cell or organ or nerve to conduct the action. When I show you a video, it'll make more sense. But get familiar with the word neurotransmitter, synapse, and the word junction. Junction, you're going to hear a lot. When two things come together, they create a junction. So when two streets come together, we have a junction. Yeah. So when a nerve and a muscle cell come together, they create a neuromuscular junction. When a nerve come together to release a neurotransmitter to tell the other cell what to do, it's going to be released in the synapse space. And in that space, there's going to be a neurotransmitter released that the other cell will catch, okay, and will have it do the action that's needed. So here in this language, so when an impulse reaches the end of the axon here, a chemical called neurotransmitter is released at the synapse, which at the end, that acts on the membranes of the receptive neuron to pass the impulse along. It's just a concept. After I show you some videos, you'll understand. Okay, now coming to the three types of neurons that we talked about. There's sensory neuron, afferent neuron, okay, where sensation of touch, cold, heat, sight, hearing, taste, or pain are interpreted and experienced. So these are sensory sensations, okay? Where the motor neuron is efferent, okay, and it carries nerve impulses from the brain to the effector or the muscle or the gland that it's controlling. The intraneuron, located in the brain and spinal cord and carry impulses from a neuron to another, and they function to transmit and direct impulses from one place in the spinal cord to or the brain to another. Okay, it's like it's like, let's say a boyfriend and a girlfriend can't talk to each other, but then they have this friend that they keep talking to, and that friend keep talking back to them, communicating back to them. Think of it that way. All right, now the central nervous system is the main center control for the human organisms. It consists of the brain, we said the spinal cord, and it covers is covered by a special connective tissue called the meninges. So the meninges has three layers to it. The most outer layer is the dura mater, and translation to that is tough mother. And it's a protective, fibrous, connective sheath. So it's the most dense, okay? And it covers the brain and the spinal cord. Now, you have the pia mater, which is delicate mother, and that is the inner layer, okay? That's the closest to the brain, where the dura mater is closer to the skull. And it attaches to the surface of the brain and the spinal cord, and it's supplied richly with blood and what? And nourishment to the under tissue. Now, between the outer dura mater and the pia mater, or mater, whatever they call it, is this thin-like membrane called the arachnoid mater, okay? Which means spider layer. So what is in that layer? It's mainly provides space for blood vessels, and most important for you to understand, circulation of cerebral fluid, okay? In the cerebral fluid, there's supposed to be all the nutrients that the brain needs and more to it. So here we go. The cerebral fluid is a clear fluid that carries nutrients to the brain tissue and carries wastes away. It's like the lymphatic system, okay? But its main function is to protect the central nervous system by acting as a shock absorber for the delicate tissue, just kind of similar to the bursa in the knee, right? And the synovial fluid. Okay, now let's talk about the brain. The brain, the principal nerve center. It's the body's largest and most complex nerve tissue, containing an excess of 110 billion neurons. That's a lot. and it's located and protected by the cranium. Okay, so again, what does it do? It controls sensation, muscles, glandular activity, all the hormones and all that stuff, and the power to think and feel. We experience the body through we experience the world really through our body, but it all gets processed through our brain. So let's talk about what the brain includes. Okay, we have the cerebrum, which is the largest portion of the brain, makes up the front top half of the brain. Okay, which has to do with what? Speech, sensation, communication, reasoning, will, and emotions. This you should know, and technically that's all you really should know about this brain, but this section of the brain. Besides that, it has a right and a left hemisphere. Okay, you know, they say, are you a left brain or are you a right brain? If you're a right brain, you're more artistic. If you're left brain, and autistic maybe, and left brain, you're more a thinker, more analytic, you're more you know, the other way. So, and what's cool about it is you have, so the right brain connects to the left side of the body, and did I say right? Because I'm, so right to the left and left to the right. Okay, so it has an opposite effect on the body. What else do we need to understand about the cerebrum? It's divided into fissures, right and left, connects bundle of fibers called corpus callosum. So that's an important one. So this is a bundle of fibers that's in between the left and the right hemisphere that helps connect information between both. So that you need to know. So on an interesting note, the sensory and motor function from the right side of the body are processed by the left side of the brain, and the sensory and motor activities of the left side of the body are processed and controlled by the right side of the body. Pretty neat. This is not the best picture for the lobes, but that's why I had the video. But for you to understand, we have the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and there's a temporal lobe here that is not showing. Okay, so these are the 4 lobes for hearing and all that stuff. Occipital for seeing. Okay, now the cerebrum, or oh, sorry, the cerebellum. I think of it as a flower. I don't know why. I just think of it as a flower. You can think of it as a tree. It's up to you. But that's the smallest part here. And it's located below the cerebellum and at the back of the cranium. What does it do? That's all we need to know. We need to know where it's located and what it does. And what it does, it helps in balance and coordinating of voluntary muscles. Voluntary muscles means muscles that we can control, meaning can activate whenever we want, turn it off whenever we want. Like our muscular muscles. I can contract my biceps, I can release my biceps, I can contract my back, I can lift my legs. I can also refuse not to do any of those. So that's what voluntary means. Alrighty, now, so again, let's go to number 1 here. So the cerebrum, which is left and right hemispheres of the brain. So it's the largest part. The cerebellum is the lowest portion of the in the brain. It's closer to the spinal cord. Now, the third section, we're going to call it the dicephalon, which includes kind of more inner portions of the brain. The hypothalamus, the thalamus, and the pineal and pituitary gland. So 1, 2, 3, 4 things, and they're all 4 complicated things, okay? All I want you to know is just understand the main purpose of them. So the hypothalamus governs the pituitary gland. Thereby, they can regulate autonomic system and endocrine glands. So they can regulate body temperatures and the secretions of the endocrine system. So the endocrine system is the hormonal system, all the hormones, which we're going to learn after. One thing also that's they may ask you about is the pituitary gland, considered the master gland. Why? Because it It controls other adrenal or endocrine glands. Okay, and what else? So also it has to do with our sleep, right? The dicephalon with our sleep governs the sleep, the circadian rhythm, our regulating of temperature, survival things, you know? Then we have the brain stem, okay, which is 3 parts. This one we should know. So the brain stem, so this part right here, from the spinal cord, the medulla oblongata, the pons, and the midbrain. So this is considered one section we should know. Then the dicephalon is right here, okay? You have the cerebrum right here, and then the right and left hemisphere or the other lobes are right here. So the 3 parts of this section of the brain stem, midbrain, the pons, and the medulla. Okay, they interact together and they relay and transmit impulses from one portion of the brain to another. So we have, so the midbrain contains the main nerve pathways connecting the cerebrum and the lower nervous system, as well as certain visual and auditory reflexes, and coordinates eye movements and things that are seen. Now, the pons, located between the midbrain and the medulla oblongata, relay impulses between the cerebrum and the medulla and the cerebellum. Do you need to know all this? Don't worry. We're gonna go dive into the questions that they're gonna ask us, and you're gonna see the nature of the questions. It all has to do with, you know, has to do with what, when it comes to the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, where these play a part, okay? The medulla oblongata is enlarged continuation of the spinal cord and extends from the foramen of the magnus and the pons and connects to the brain. So what does it do? It regulates movement of the heart and controls the vasoconstriction of the arteries and the heart rate. So here we go. So the basic things. Again, the medulla oblongata regulates movement of the heart, right? So it's the involuntary things. Vasoconstriction, meaning when the vessels need to constrict for the blood supply to go somewhere else. And for the heart rate, and for the rate and the depth of breathing, okay? So as we relax, our breath is deeper and longer. And as we require a lot of the air, then our breathing is going to be more rapid. Okay, now the spinal cord, now again, back to the spinal cord, consists of 31 segments. Each segments begin at the site of attachment or of the pair of the spinal nerves. So stemming out from the foramens right here, coming out of the spinal cord. So we talked about the central nervous system, right? The central nervous system, which was the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system consists of the nerves that connect the spinal cord to the rest of the body, including the spinal nerves that's coming from the neck down, or the cranial nerves from the neck up, and their branches. So the peripheral nerves send sensory impulses to the brain and spinal cord and transmit back the motor impulses from the brain back to the muscle glands or visceral organs mean inside the body. Now we're gonna dive down more into sectioning that peripheral nervous system into autonomic and somatics. Think of soma, word soma, body, okay? So it has to do movement, has to do with the body, where autonomic, things that we cannot control. It's automated stuff that happens to the body to keep our body going. So basically the somatic system involves those connection to the central nervous system, which are the voluntary muscles. Voluntary muscles, okay? So with the voluntary muscles, my somatic nervous system is gonna work. And the autonomic nerve connects the central nervous system to the visceral organs, such as the heart, blood vessels, and glands. So the autonomic nervous system connects to the functions of our inner body. Whether it's going to dilate vessels or not, depends on blood flow, if it's going to secrete a certain hormone to do a certain job to the body or help with a function. And visceral organs, which is deep organs in the belly, which is digestive organs, all these organs in the body. Okay, now cranial nerves. There are 12 of the cranial nerves that connect directly to some parts of the brain surface and pass through the opening called foramina, from foramen, foramina, okay? Figure it out. And the sides and the base of the cranium. So the base of the cranium, we got more nerves coming out from the foramens that are coming from the sides of the cervical spine, okay? All right, and nerves can be either motor or sensory, meaning they can do actions or they sense sensations, or they can be mixed nerves where they can sense sensations and they can send actions too. Okay, so now the nerves are named numerically according to the order in which they arise from the brain. And we're gonna go through the 12 nerves and the peripheral as well. I'm going to describe the type, their function, and where are they located. So spinal nerves, there are 8 from the cervical, 12 from the thoracic, 5 from the lower back, lumbar, 5 from the sacrum, and 1 from your one vertebrae, which is actually, they're like this. There are 3 or 4 also infused, but they come out like a tip, like a process at the end of the tailbone. So the 4 upper cervical nerves are called, so there are 4, okay, 4 cervical plexus. And where do they supply? The skin on the face, right? They supply the movement of the head, the neck, and the shoulder. Then we have 4 lower plexus. So they are in pairs. And so the first pair of the thoracic nerves form the brachial plexus. So because the brachial plexus are going to branch even more as it goes down the arm, but as they come down the neck to underneath your clavicle, right? They're going to come down underneath, and then they're going to branch out after to your ulnar, medial, and radial, okay? So the first pair, thoracic nerves, so we can make it more specific, and they branch out into those 3. These 4, sorry. And the next 11 pairs of thoracic nerves supply muscles, skin, organs in the thorax, meaning the lungs, the heart, whatever it's going to supply, all the muscles around that area. After that, I'm going to show you a picture and then make more sense. Now, first 4 lumbar, there's 5 lumbar, okay? So the first 4, they form the lumbar plexus, which supplies skin, abdomen, organs, hips, thigh, and knees. So it's kind of from the belly down. Now you have the femoral, which is like where the thigh is, and the obturator nerve reaches the upper part of the leg. Don't worry about that. We just got this, okay? Then we have the portion of the 4th and the 5th lumbar nerve and the 1st, 2nd, 3rd of the sacral nerve, which creates so we got 4th, 5th lumbar, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th sacral. Now, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's gonna create the sacral plexus, okay? And they merge and they divide the nerves into 2 main branches, but the sciatic nerve, is the largest, the longest nerve in the body. And people complain of it a lot. And the sciatic nerve consists of 2 nerves within the same nerve sheath, common peroneal nerve and the tibial nerve. Okay, so the sciatic nerve consists of two nerves. That means it's going to branch out into two. One is going to continue toward the lateral leg, below the knee laterally, and the tibia. Okay, which is the shin bone. And the sciatic nerve serves the hamstrings and back, leg, and foot. Because as you feel it, you're going to feel it in the back of your glutes, back of the hamstrings, can go all the way down to your toe. So this is pretty much it. And all these are really important. So tomorrow I'll give you time to rewrite them, okay, as we fill in the paperwork. We have a lot of sections right here. We don't want you to get confused, okay? But this is what we need to know. I have also one fun video for us to watch. So we talked about the cranial nerves, right? That there is 8 pairs of cranial nerves that are coming and stemming from the cervical spine. So we're going to go through them one by one. So here we're going to have the name of the nerve, what type it is, meaning it's only sensory. That means it senses and brings information to the spinal, to the brain.
Trigeminal base teeth.
Or is it going to be motor and sensory? That means it sends actions, it does actions, and it senses the environment. And we got just motor, like here, or combination. So you kind of see what it is, where it's located, and what does it do? And what does it do? Okay, so olfactory. So if you want to follow along, it helps you remember. Olfactory nerve, it senses smell. Sense of smell. Easy. So it just senses, it's in the nose, and it feels aroma. Second one is your optic nerve. It senses through the retina. Okay, so it senses images, light. And so the function is to be able to see. So that nerve is there so you can see images into your brain. Number 3, oculomotor nerve. This is a motor and sensory proprioceptive nerve. So it's muscles of the eye and controls eye movement. So as you are looking around in space, trying to sense where you're at, where you are, this is mainly for sensing where you're at, and as well moving, which is the motor part, is moving the eye. And there's muscles attached to the eye. Number 4 is your trochlear nerve. It's also motor and sensory. It's proprioceptive nerve. It's located superior oblique muscle of the eye. And it helps in rotation of the eyeball down and up. Okay, so rotation of the eye going up, going down, going up, going down. Okay. Okay, now they're all great, but there's 2, the most important ones. Okay. The trigeminal nerve, put 2, 3, 4 stars on it. Okay. Or trifacial nerve. So this nerve extends to the lower jaw, to the mid of the, so pretty much everywhere in your face. Location 4. So it senses and it does motion too. So it's located in the face, teeth, and tongue. Controls sensation of the face. So as you see, that if you look at the nerve and in a picture, you'll see that it will supply the whole face. And movement of the jaw and tongue. So jaw, tongue, and the actual face and movement. So when people have, we're going to come to the pathologies, and one of the pathologies is going to affect the trigeminal nerve. Number 6, the abducent nerve, motor and sensory. It's also proprioceptive nerve. The recti muscles of the eye rotate eyeballs outward. I don't know how you rotate the eyeballs outward. I'll look more into that, but the idea is also has to do with um, um, you'd be surprised how much the eye is always taking in information and sending it to the brain, right? We can sense something and we send it to the brain. A smell can instigate something safe, instigate some memory. It can instigate something offensive, right? So it can give us a little bit of information on our surroundings. Our ears kind of, you can hear if something is coming up or something needs our attention. So it also senses information to our brain. What do you have? So we got the nose and the eyes. Yeah, we have so much happening in the eyes as we get in light, as we get information, as we get in the environment around us. So the eyes require a lot of nerves. Alrighty. So controlling sensations of the face, this nerve has to do a lot with like our emotions, right? So our emotions, it can show on our muscles, our configuration of our muscles of our face, the way we move our jaw and tongue is nothing comparing to the eyes, but it's there, you know. What else? Abducent nerve we talked about. Facial nerve. So we have another facial nerve right here, but it's a little different than this one. And it's motor and sensory, face and neck, and it controls facial muscles or expressions. So here we're talking about the expressions I just mentioned a little bit here. As we can read people's emotions through their face and to how they manipulate their facial muscles. Okay, so 6, 7, acoustic or auditory nerve. So it has to do with the ear. It's a sensory nerve and it's a sensory of hearing. So pretty simple. So the olfactory, you got nose, is pretty simple. The auditory acoustic nerve is pretty simple. When we get to the face and the eyes, we got quite a few nerves right here. Okay, next, 8. Is it 8? Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we finished 8, 9. The glossopharyngeal, which is motor and sensory nerve, it has to do with the tongue and the pharynx. So sense of taste. If we don't put anything in our mouth, we taste nothing. Now, second, here I said the two most important one that you definitely need to not forget is trigeminal, because it's going to be common. And there's some precaution for you when you do massage for the face with that nerve, and there's going to be some pathologies or paralysis that people will have in that nerve. Now here, the vagus nerve, pneumogastric nerve. So this is a super, super important nerve. It's motor and sensory, so it does both. And this nerve is the longest nerve that connects to the most organs, to the pharynx, larynx, to the heart, to the lungs, and all the digestive organs. So their function is to control sensation and muscular movement related to talking, heart action, breathing, and digestion. So it also connects a lot to the emotions, in other words. I will have a 5-minute video for you guys to watch about the vagus nerve. It's gonna be definitely an eye-opener. Especially for the people that can never, ever, ever relax, or they have damaged their ability to relax. Your way into them is gonna be through the vagus nerve, okay? 8, 10, 11, you have the spinal accessory nerve. It's a motor nerve. It's of the shoulder. It's good to know that nerve because as we learn in massage, between the shoulders is a very sensitive area, right? The same as the glutes, the bottom of the foot, closer to the armpits. These areas are very sensitive to people. That means you can actually make them feel something. Hopefully, you'll get them to relax. and it controls the movement of the neck and muscle, okay, neck muscles. And you'll tend to see people have a lot of dysfunction in their neck and shoulders. Number 12, hypoglossal nerve. It's a motor nerve. It's of the tongue and neck, and it controls movement of the tongue, talking. So to read those tomorrow, we'll go through them one more time. Okay. And this is kind of a view of the spinal nerves showing plexuses, which we just talked about, and the motor and sensory functions to them. We don't need to know this in detail, but just to help you kind of understand reading it. So these are the sensory levels or the sensory nerves, and these are the motor levels, okay? So the cervical plexus is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then brachial plexus, I got 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see. So the facial muscle, phalangeal muscles, tongue muscles, see, all these we talked about is going to be C1, C2, and C3. Neck muscles, you got axis from C1, C2, C3. Trapezius, access to C3 and C4. Rhomboid muscles, C4 and 5. And the diaphragm, C3, C4, and C5. The suprainfraspinatus, which is your rotator cuff, is going to be C4, 5, and 6. So as you manipulate the cervical spine, from 1 to 6 at least, you are going to be affecting or connecting to the nerves that connect to those muscles or organs, in other words, okay? As we come down to the brachial plexus, to get the deltoid, the biceps, or the muscles of the arms here, you'll be going to C6 and C7, C8, and so forth and so forth. Okay, so this is how you know that these muscles will be connected to these cervical, to these spinal nerves. And technically, that's how shiatsu and trigger point, all these things closer to the spine, do affect and help release all of these muscles. And as you can see, it starts from the face to the shoulders. It kind of goes in order, okay, to the arms, to the back, to the hips, to the glutes, right? To the lower legs, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's continue on with the division of the nervous system that we just talked about. Let's put it down into the simple form. Okay, so we are talking about the central nervous system that controls and coordinates all activity from the internal environment to the external environment. The main part of the nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. From the spinal cord, we got 12 cranial nerves and 31 spinal nerves. We got the 12 cranial nerves connecting to the cranium or the head, where we got the 31 nerves connecting to the rest of the body. We got two categories here. We're gonna break that system into two. The peripheral nervous system, which means from the neck down. We have autonomic, which is automated actions, and you have somatic division, which is voluntary. So these are voluntary and these are involuntary. Okay, you have the choice to stop and go with the motion, where the autonomic nervous system does not. It continues and it works day and night trying to get your body balanced. So come here to the voluntary pretty quick. So it's sensory neurons, sensory information from the skin, skeletal muscle, joints to the nervous system. Okay, that's the sensory. Here is the motor neuron, which is motor impulses from the central nervous system to the skeletal muscles. So the idea is from to the brain to where? To skin, muscles, joints. All right. Where the autonomic nervous system, we talked about There is the sensory, visceral organs, the nervous system. Here is the motor, smooth muscles, cardiac, heart, muscle, and so meaning the heart, yeah? So you got the heart, smooth muscles, meaning your internal organs. So it's the same thing, visceral organs, internal organs, they're all made of smooth muscles and glands. So they both somatic, which is voluntary, and autonomic, involuntary, do send sensory information to the brain, and we receive motor impulses back from the brain. One we can control, one we cannot. And we talked about the nerves again, as they branch out. You got from the cervical neck, the brachial coming towards the arm and branches out to your ulnar, medial, and radial. And you got them branching out to your intracostal nerves towards the ribs and the interorgans. As the sciatic nerve comes down, and as you can see below the knee, it goes into your tibial and peroneal nerve. We discussed dermatomes. It's an area of skin supplied by a nerve fiber originating from the single spinal nerve root. Okay, with the exception of C1, because every spinal nerve supply a specific segment, so except for the C1, okay? Now, sensory receptors, we talked about that earlier. So sensory receptors, we got mechanoreceptors, okay, vibration, tissue distortion, as you distort the tissue with your hands, right? You can feel that. Pressure, vibration, and stretching. And what do they call? There's names for receptors. So there is the category of the receptor, and there's the name of the receptor, okay? So they're called ruffin and Pacini corpuscles, okay? And Merkel discs in the skin. When we go through the integumentary system, which is the system of the skin organ, we go through these. So don't worry, if it seems too much, we're gonna go over them again. Okay, so example of mechanoreceptors are ruffin and Pacini. They're a little bit deeper, so they can sense deeper pressure, yeah? If we do deep tissue, if we do like deep pressure like that, we stretch, compression, these things are sensed by these two, where Merkel discs is in the skin and the proprioceptors located in the muscles, fascia, and joints. And the other receptors are the muscle spindles and the Golgi tendon. So these are, we talked about them earlier. These are in the middle of the muscle. These are the attachment. Okay, so mechanoreceptor, mechanical pressure. Thermoreceptor, which is located in the skin and in the mouth. And what would they sense? Hot and cold, all right? We talked about photoreceptors, were located in the retina, sensitive to light and detect color as well. Chemoreceptors, located in the mouth and nose and sensitive to certain chemical stimuli that give us a sense, okay, the sense of taste and smell. Okay, chemical receptors, certain arteries are sensitive to carbon dioxide and pH in the blood and affect respiration and involuntary function to maintain homeostasis. As we go along, if they ask us questions about these, we'll come to them again, but just understand chemical receptors are located in the mouth and nose and affect the taste and smell. Nociceptor affect pain, so these are more common and they're all over the body, except the brain. They respond to extreme stimuli like pressure, heat, cold, and any damage to the tissue, okay? All right, now the autonomic nervous system, what does it do? It regulates action of glands, smooth muscles, and heart, things that we cannot control. and circulation and activity of digestive tract, respiration, and heart. So these kind of autonomic tasks has to do with gland secretions, movement of the internal organs for digestion, movement of the heart, right, for pumping, circulation of the blood, activity of digestion, which is breaking down the food and all that stuff, breathing as we filter the body and as we supply it with oxygen, and regulation of temperature. These are all under conscious control and considered involuntary. Okay, not under conscious control. All right, we come to the nerves of the neck. These nerves, you don't need to know. This is just for your knowledge. It's just gonna make things more complicated, so we're gonna skip those, okay? Now we got the parasympathetic. Okay, so let's come here now. Now we're talking about what you as a massage therapist need to know most about the nervous system, meaning, what do you call this word? Conclusion? Yeah, think of it that way. Through the central nervous system, to the peripheral nervous system, to the somatic and autonomic nervous system, and breaking down to all of these things, we need to come and understand. I mean, voluntary is voluntary. It's fine and dandy. You have control over it, but we don't need to, because we can always tell the client, lift your legs, push your arm, do things, and they'll do it. What we need to, as massage therapists, is to affect the autonomic nervous system, which branches into two. All righty, what does it branches into? The autonomic nervous system consists of motor neurons that originate in the central nervous system, and it's under subdivision of sympathetic and parasympathetic. So through all of this, we did so we can get to the sympathetic and the parasympathetic states. All right, so the nerves of the sympathetic nervous system originate where? In the thoracic and lumbar. To be exact, from T1 to lumbar 2. Okay, and within the ganglia, neurons enter. These ganglia connects to the central nervous system, fibers. Okay, now the sympathetic nervous system supplies the glands and involuntary muscles of internal organs and the wall of vessels with nerves. So the sympathetic nervous system supplies glands, involuntary muscles, internal organs, and the wall of vessels of the nerves. That means if it supplies them, it has an effect on them, okay? All righty. So the activities of the sympathetic nervous system is primarily to prepare the organism, we are the organism, for energy expenditure. Because we said when we are in stress, fight or flight, okay, we are going to expend energy because it's stressful or it's an emergency situation. So even I said, if nobody's chasing you, if you're stressed out naturally, you are going to expend more energy than you need. That's why you're going to get hungry and you want to eat and you want to get the sugar up and do all these things, okay? Okay, so what can it do? Stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system can bring on rapid responses. What are these responses that the parasympathetic nervous system brings in? It increases respiration. You're gonna breathe more, faster, and then your dilation of your pupils, and you're gonna increase your heart rate so you can keep up with the demand of the oxygen and the blood and all that stuff, and cardiac output. So it's gonna be stress on the heart, stress on breathing, okay, and stress on your whole metabolism, in other words. Highlight those, these are important. Okay, now they broke this with this. Okay, cardiac output, we're good, period. Continue on. Blood vessels dilate. That means the blood vessel become larger to accommodate more blood, okay? More blood flow. And the liver increases conversion of glycogen to glucose. So as we break down food, okay, the body will have some ATP ready for all activities of the body, and it's going to store some energy as glycogen form in the liver, okay, and muscles. But here we're talking about the liver, internal organs. And then when the body needs that energy, is going to go from glycogen to glucose, which is a simpler form, for more energy. There is also increased mental activity and production of adrenal hormones, which are, so when it comes to the sympathetic nervous system, we got epinephrine and norepinephrine, which two hormones that help in the sympathetic system to function the way we just described in this paragraph. So it's gonna prepare the body to meet the emergency. Okay, that was a mouthful, right? Next, the parasympathetic nervous system. Now the other nervous system. So from the autonomic nervous system, we got two functions. One that goes up and one that goes down. We talked about the one that goes up. Now we're going to talk about the one that goes down, or the more relax and digest. So the parasympathetic nervous system here counteracts the action of the sympathetic nervous system. Simply that. The general function of the sympathetic nervous division is to conserve energy. So here we got energy expenditure. Here we got conservation of energy. And reversing the action of the sympathetic division. So imagine somebody is catering and they're about to feed or have a restaurant, and you got about 20 people walking at the same time. So now this is kind of a stressful situation for the business, even though it's a good one, but it's a stressful one. That means, servers got to take orders, all coordinate them. The kitchen has to coordinate. You can't make people wait so much, but everybody got to work faster, okay, to supply the demand. Now, what happens after that rush is gone? Okay, now you got the plates, the floors, the tables, the dishes, the re-racking, restacking, and all that happening. It's kind of the same thing. So now in this state, the body is gonna do some house cleaning and reverse things and reduce the heart rate, reduce the respiration, and blood pressure goes down and increases the digestion and elimination. So now, since going to the bathroom and eating is not a priority when you gotta work, now part of reversing everything is cleaning house, is relaxing, is breathing, digesting, meaning the food that we have in, we need to break it down so we can use it for energy after. And elimination, getting rid of all the wastes in the body, urine and all that kind of stuff, okay? Eliminate any byproduct that happened from the action of the sympathetic nervous system. We always have actually elimination as part of our metabolism, but it gets increased when there's stress, when there's work, when there's high demand. So the parasympathetic nervous system is most active when people are calm and in state of relaxation. So if you're a constantly chronic stressed out person, that means you don't ever reach the calm or state of relaxation. You are inviting sickness to your body. And as massage therapists, we educate or should educate our clients of the importance of calm and relaxation. And where is it best for them to get calm and relaxed then with you? Because they obviously cannot do it on their own. So besides you just giving therapy, you need therapy talk, more educational talk about the state of the body relaxing, state of hormones, state of metabolism, all these things, okay? And some, basic nutrition is also good, wouldn't hurt. Now, the parasympathetic nerve fibers, that serves the organs and glands of the thorax and the abdomen are a part of the vagus nerve, okay? The pelvic portion of the parasympathetic system rises from the second, third, and fourth sacral nerve, okay? So the pelvic area, they arise from the third, fourth sacral nerves. So S2, 3, and 4. So where the sacrum is. So we need to address the sacrum. We cannot just leave the sacrum without addressing the sacrum, right? And a lot of people massage and don't ever address the glutes or address the sacrum or properly address the neck either. So they're just getting the massage in the middle where it needs to be kind of all over, especially a dance, right? End of the spine, beginning of the spine. Okay, and the fibers of the parasympathetic nerve fibers associate with part of the head and are included in the cranial nerves 3, 5, 6, 7. I don't know how to read those numbers, honestly, sorry. But let's go through them here. Vagus nerve, which is 10. So of course 10, and then was it? And the third, 7th, yeah, look them up, okay? But your vagus nerve is main one. Now let's talk about, move a little faster, about their reflexes and the reflex arc. So the neurologic pathway is the route that the nerve impulse travels through the nerve system that we talked about, okay? In the picture below, right here. Okay, so this is kind of the pathway. This is the arc, okay? So that means what intraneuron is doing its job between two neurons. And that is the pathway it's taking. So here, just to have it in more terms. So it's the route that a nerve impulse travels through the nerve system. So it's going to travel through a sensory signal to the spinal cord and back from the spinal cord. Now, what happens in the spinal cord, okay, is the nerve pathway is the nerve pathway of the reflex. And the reflex is the simplest form of nervous activity, which includes a sensory and a motor neuron. So a reflex has to do with sensing and with sending out a motor response. Simple. As touching something hot and feeling something hot and lifting your hand off of something hot. Simple as that, okay? The reflex arc is the nerve pathway of the nerve. Very simple. So how is the pathway of the nerve? Right here. It goes through the axon, okay? And it passes through the dorsal root, enters the spinal cord, interacts with a connecting neuron, and it comes out from the ventral root down the motor neuron towards the muscle or towards wherever it needs to go. All right, that's pretty much it. Now, proprioception is sensory nerves that can further classify as two exteroceptors, proprioceptors. Inner and outer type of things. So exteroceptors are located throughout the body and record conscious sensation as heat, cold, and pain. So these are all things that are felt inside the body, okay? Wear and pressure, where proprioceptors is unconscious things of the inner senses. As you see movement, which also known kinesiology is the study of movement. And you sense your body through space. So proprioception is a system of sensory and motor nerve activity that provide information to the central nervous system about the following: position, the rate of movement, or different body parts. So it's kind of an external environment type of thing, okay? So the state of contraction also, meaning where the muscle is contracting, where the muscle is positioned, and that helps in injury to the joint muscles, from excessive stretching, contraction, and making possible the coordination and smooth muscle occurred smoothly. So athletes have very good proprioceptions. Dancers have very good proprioceptions, okay, because they have more of a connection within their body to their surroundings, okay, and to their inner as well, because it's part of what they do. Okay, proprioceptors also are specialized nerve endings located where? In the muscle, in the tendons, in the joint, in the fascia. So fascia is connective tissue, that it's what connects everything together, okay? And these three receptors are mesospindles, um, and Golgi tendon, and joint proprioceptors. The spindles are largely located in the belly of the muscles, like I said, and they are specialized contactile tissue called intrafusal muscle fibers. It's just the same because it's intrafusal. It's infused in a coil manner inside the muscle fibers. That's it, okay? The Golgi tendon, on the other hand, are multi-branch sensory nerve endings located at which junction? Musculotendinous, meaning where the muscle and the tendon come together. And then we have the tendon connecting to the bone. That's how it's get anchored, right? That's how the muscle gets anchored to a tendon, and that tendon is connected to the bone. Okay, and then we said the two types of joint proprioceptors where you can feel movement is Pacini, corpuscles, and Ruffins are the same ones that we also talked about in the mechanoreceptors that sense deep pressure, vibration, and all that stuff. It's kind of the same thing that we talked about with sensory organs. So this is the spinal cord, and this is coming into the spinal cord. This is leaving the spinal cord. Okay, dorsal coming in, ventral is leaving. So right here is the same. This is the muscle itself, and this is the ends of the muscle. So there's sensory organs right there that senses if anything changes at the end of the muscle. And then we have the muscle spindles, which are inside the muscle. And as we feel stretch and deep pressure or any change in the environment right here of the muscle, it will send a sensory, afferent sensory neuron signal to the spine through the dorsal root into the spinal cord. It might do its thing somewhere, but all we got to do is know that it's going to come back after it decides what to do through the ventral root. Okay? And that's pretty much it. We talked about the disorders in the we talked about all these disorders in the previous video, okay? So we're gonna stop the video at this point. And tomorrow we'll go through some questions and we'll go through the workbook.